Welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life, health, and transformational coaches being the change they seek in the world. If you'd like to be featured on our podcast to share what you're contributing to making the world a better place for us all, please go to www.jointheyouworldorder.com. Be sure to like and follow our podcast for the latest episodes. I'm Jeff Hart. We all know that legal matters can be costly and stressful. Finding the right representation and dealing with high retainers and hourly bills adds up fast. But what if I told you there was a way to have legal insurance, just like your health or auto insurance? Well, Legal Shield has leveled that playing field. From just $29.95 a month, you get access to lawyers for personal legal matters, from traffic tickets to real estate issues or even trust matters. Help is just a tap away on your phone. Call or text 435-764-0875 and use the code JillLegal, or pause this video and scan the QR code to start your journey to legal protection today. Hi, and welcome to the You World Order Showcase podcast. I'm your host, Jill Hart, and with us today is Melanie Cohen. Melanie helps people achieve their health and wellness goals, including weight loss, through a unique method of decluttering. Welcome to this show, Melanie. It's really great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Jill. This is exciting.
So we've been talking about all these things before we got started. I do want to know how you got started in tying weight loss and health in general to decluttering. So let's start there.
Okay, so how far back should I go in
I don't
figuring
know.
out how I got where I am?
I'm sure it all starts when you were born. There I was,
something like
floating
that.
around in
I
the
won't go back
cosmos.
that far. I won't go back that far, but I'll go back to the 70s when I became a competitive gymnast, and high level training 20 to 30 hours a week at peak. And despite being like in the best shape you could expect from a kid that age, there was incredible toxic scrutiny over the scale. I got called piggy and fatty and all the things no one should ever say to a preteen or teenage girl. And I ended up giving up on my career when it just became too much. And I think while I didn't understand it then, I understand now. I was an emotional eater, and as soon as I quit, not training 20 to 30 hours a week, I gained weight. I probably looked normal at that point, but then I gained weight in college. I gained weight after getting married, gained a lot of weight with both of my pregnancies. And when I hit 30, I also hit over 200 on the scale, and on a gymnast height, not not a taller person. I just had gotten to the point where the identity that I had had when I was younger, of being a champion and being really good at what I did and being proud, I'd lost all of that. I just assumed I was always going to be the fat mom and the unattractive wife, and not taken seriously enough in my career because people, saw weight first. So I started a major weight loss plan, and I lost over 60 pounds and found a new version of me. I actually was doing gymnastics in my 30s as a way to stay healthy and have fun. But I think so I weight loss coach for over 20 years. Both of my parents are hoarders, and they don't live together, and I'm an only child. So they both are my responsibility as they age. And it wasn't until maybe the last decade that I realized exactly how stressful I found their homes. And as a result, also how stressed I was by any clutter around me, whether it was a pile of papers or a calendar that was too full of too much stuff. And did a little research. I actually apprenticed with a friend's personal organizing business, and I had this dawning. I was in the kitchen on a project, someone who was moving from like 5,000 square feet to like 2,000 square feet. So a lot had to get cleaned up, and I was in charge of the spices. And I sat there as I looked at 5 bottles of marjoram, a spice I never use. And I looked at 5 bottles and I was like, how does one person need 5 jars of marjoram? And then it all came to us, every time a recipe came around, we didn't look to see what we had and we bought more, and everything started exploding. And it's really when I made the connection between weight and clutter that, clutter is stress. So many of us eat when we're stressed, or we don't practice healthy behaviors when we're stressed, and clutter, whether it comes in digital form or calendar form or people form or thing form, is stressful. And so my goal is to not just help people lose weight and get healthy, but really kind of reclaim their lives by removing the clutter.
So that kind of brings us around to, what do you define clutter as? Because I
Mm.
can look at the background there and I can hear my mom's voice in my head going, no more than 3 items on any surface. I think that
I
was
love
more
it.
about dusting than anything else, but that was a hard, fast rule in our household. You could
You
have
make a
3
really good
things.
point. It's easier to keep a clean home when it's also decluttered. So I'm a values-based coach, which means I don't promote minimalism unless that's what you need, unless that's what you
Mhm.
crave. And I stuff, and I especially love photographs, and I'm just gonna show the shelves that I have go up and they go across, and it's my grandparents' wedding photos, it's my wedding photos, it's our kids' photos, my husband's family history also. And I feel when I sit in this space, like I have all of them on my shoulders. But, all of those people that preceded me are, giving me strength and energy. Um, but this is the only place we have photographs in our home. And so for me, what it meant was creating, a collage, if you will, of our lives, but not having it take over all the other spaces in our homes. So one person's clutter is someone else's neat and organized, and
And it is
someone's,
very neat and organized. I
thank you.
just, and I don't mean to like put you on the spot about it.
No, no, I love
I just,
talking about it because I think sometimes people are afraid to work with a clutter coach because they think their coach is going to ask them to get rid of everything. No, I want people to get rid of things that are not adding meaning to their life or are not simplifying their life. Those things that really impact us on a daily basis. Get rid of the stuff that isn't doing that, or get rid of the, I feel like things have energy. So the energy that are coming from the photographs is positive and warm energy, but we have other things in our home that have negative energy. Those are the things that we need to get rid of.
and we don't have to keep everything. Just the
Oh,
old days when you had to keep all your receipts. God forbid you don't keep your receipts. Everything's online, people. And if
right.
it's not,
Yeah,
you can't get it online because everything's gone down, then you're not going to need it. Trust me.
exactly. Exactly.
So there's a difference between clutter and minimalism, apparently.
Hmm.
We'll expound
Yeah.
on that a little bit.
Oh, I'd be happy to. I think sometimes I think minimalism gets a bad name because there's this perspective that it means living a Spartan lifestyle and getting rid of everything and only having 40 pieces of clothing. And that works for some people. And I'm intrigued by it. And I've actually studied a lot of it. But I think for many of us, only having 38 pieces of clothing would actually be stressful as opposed to the other way around. Although there are many of us who have a closet that's full of like 4 different sizes, things that we're hanging on to just in case. You never know when. What happens if I gain? What happens if I lose? What happens if this comes back into style? What happens if I find the pants that actually match that shirt that I've been hanging on to forever? Um, I, for me, just saying all of that out loud is like, stressful, thinking about all of that. And so the goal is really like, keep the clothing you love, keep the clothing that looks fantastic on you, keep the clothing that other people compliment, and let go of, all of that other stuff. So there's probably like an expansive space between minimalism and like level 5 or stage 5 order. It's about finding the place in that line that really works for you, feels good, feels comfortable, and all the things.
I like that a lot. I, it reminds me of Marie Kondo. I think because I spent so many years of my life in Japan when I was young, it really
Mm,
did influence a lot of how we lived our lives growing up and how I've continued to live my life today. And
sure.
when I saw Marie's show, when she talks about, going through everything and touching each item and saying, does this bring me joy? How do I feel about this? You can, they were doing it with their clothes, but really you can do it with everything in your life and you feel the energy. She's talking about feeling the energy of the item. And if it's neutral or less, it's not adding to your life.
Right.
It's it's actually taken away from your life. It's sucking energy out of you that could be going towards something better.
Yes. 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 Absolutely.
So you don't have to, like, if you work with Melanie, you don't have to worry about she's going to tell you to get rid of all your stuff. My
Nope.
daughter, my daughter lives in what we call the closet. She has a 10 by 13 space that she's renting that she has all her worldly possessions in. Girl, you are amazing. And she's not a tiny person. I mean, she's very thin, but she's tall and she herself occupies space in the
Right,
space.
right. Listen, I live in New York City. I know from like trying to make things fit in a small space,
Mhm.
and I think this is a place where, people bring in organizers all the time. The problem is that so many people are organizing before decluttering or are organizing instead of decluttering. And if you organize a space with too much stuff, it's not long before it's messy again and then clean up and then messy again. And that's annoying and overwhelming. And so decluttering as much as possible before trying to get organized is incredibly helpful. And for so many people, what they find is, well, now that I've decluttered, I don't need to get organized because I just am by nature of having removed all the extra stuff.
Yeah, and not being afraid to throw stuff out. I've so often I've heard stories about, all of the tons and literally tons of clothing that gets sent to third world countries and ends up in landfills over there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
we probably don't need as much as we get. And then we don't really recycle stuff. We may think we're going to, but really we don't. Just throw it
Right.
out. What good are
100%.
you?
And it's interesting because once you declutter, you shop differently,
Mm.
you know? And I think it helps us take pause and not make decisions rashly when it comes to shopping, whether you're shopping online or shopping in person. That if we like create rules for ourselves, like I'm not going to buy it right now. Let me wait 24 hours before I hit send on whatever website I might be shopping on, or if I'm in person, not to get distracted by it's on sale. You better get it today. It might not be there tomorrow. Well, if I wait and go back tomorrow and it's not there, maybe it wasn't quite meant to be, in my closet or in my space. Um, I made the goal a while ago to have 80 to 90% of my closet secondhand, whether it was a hand me down from my mother or from one of my daughters or something I bought at a thrift shop or a yard sale or something like that. And I'm getting there. I'm not buying underwear secondhand. I
Right.
won't, I'm not going to do that. But if my shoes and boots and sneakers and coats and the other things are predominantly secondhand, I feel better about what I'm bringing in to my home and eventually potentially having to get rid of. So, and if your shopping changes, then your finances change too. Like all of, the financial clutter is a thing. So I find it helpful to kind of like start in one place and then recognize how many different things represent clutter in our lives.
And as we're getting close to the holidays, as we're recording this, it actually won't go out until the beginning of the new year. But people, when you're talking to people about the holidays and getting you gifts, we're all about, exchanging gifts. Gifts can be in a lot of different forms. They don't have to be a material thing that you give someone. And
100%.
and sometimes they feel obligated to take things that just becomes clutter in their home. And it
Yes.
and then there's guilt attached to it when it comes to like getting rid of it. It's like, I know you
Yes.
meant well, but please just
Yes.
don't buy me stuff.
It's interesting because we've been talking about this a lot this week. My husband was, I don't want to say making fun of, but I'll use that for lack of a better concept of someone who their wedding registry was all like asks for money
Mhm.
for trips. And I was like, and he's making fun of it, like, and they had three different places they wanted to go to. It was like one was Thailand, one was, somewhere in Europe and somewhere in South America, let's say. And I was like, that's perfect. They're not asking for
Really
stuff
is.
that's going to clutter their home. And how fun if we were purchasing a gift for this person to be able to say, oh, I'd really love to see them go to Thailand. Or, oh, I want them to go to South America because I love South America or something like that. Like, that's the perfect gift to ask for. And talk about a time where people are getting a lot of stuff. But, when you're registering, when you're getting married,
These days, people get married after they've already got a home.
this is true too. Yeah.
They don't need all this stuff.
Yeah.
I even found that I collected a bunch of things that I thought I was going to give to my kids, but really it's going to the DI. It's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah. I love that
they want
idea.
their own
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. We were talking about two other ideas when it came to gifts. When my birthday earlier in the year, I had found something that I really wanted, and it was the only thing I wanted. We had, started putting rules into place in terms of getting rid of things in the house. And what I wanted was they have like these window seats that are clear that your cat can sit on in the window
Mhm.
and see all the birds and stuff like that. That's what I wanted. That was the only thing I wanted. And I made a video and I posted it on all of my social media. And I immediately got a message from a friend. She goes, I feel terrible. I already bought you. And I was like, this isn't to make other people feel guilty. It was just my way of saying, unless you have the perfect thing that you're like, this is a Melanie thing, then there's no need in doing that. And another thing came up. We did some decluttering this year of the kids' stuff. One of our kids still lives at home, and one does not. And my husband and I are both huge book collectors. I will never tell people to get rid of their books. I know people are very passionate about their books, but we were going through the children's books, and we have a friend who recently had a baby, and when we went to the baby shower, they asked for nothing to be gift wrapped. It was very clear that they were being very, environmentally focused and progressive about it. And so we took about a dozen books and we made that the baby gift after the baby was born. And her name is Luna. And so any children's book that had anything to do with the moon or the sky or
Yeah.
the stars, we felt very strongly, and it made it a lot easier to get rid of some of the things. We were so appreciative. A new baby doesn't need new books. A new baby needs books, period. And so it felt really good to gift that way.
I, I've I did a similar thing with I had a bunch of homeschooling stuff. I gifted it to my friend who had more kids that were still coming up and they needed all those books. And
Right.
I didn't. And we have a thrifting system around where I live. I live in Idaho. It's called Deseret Industries. It's led by the LDS community, but they are so good about recycling stuff.
Yeah.
And you can feel good about going there because they help people get started. If somebody's struggling and down on their luck, they'll
Hmm.
come along. The church will come along. I'm not LDS, but they'll come
Hmm.
along and they will help you. And I don't even think you have to be necessarily a member of their church for them to help you.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
they'll
Yeah.
try to get people to join their church, but yeah, that it's, I think it's
There
a
are
good
so
thing.
many more ways of letting things go without feeling like you're getting rid of it. Like all of the buy nothing groups on Facebook are amazing because not only can you say, "Hey, I've got this great pair of shoes, come by the house," or we've done bigger things with like, we have a table or whatever. But you can also ask for things like I'm looking for you know, a punch bowl. Does anybody have one? Or even, does anybody have a punch bowl they're willing to lend me? Like, again, I live in New York City. We have a small space. We have some tools for my husband to be able to fix things in the house, but there's no reason for him to have, a garage full of them when you can go on and say, does anybody have a saw, a hammer, whatever that thing is. There are so many ways to make sure that we're not cluttering our own space by being a part of a larger community.
And I'll just give a plug for O'Reilly's right now. It's an auto parts store. They will lend you tools. You can go and rent it for free. What you do is you go
That's
and you
great.
buy the perfect tool that you need. I have a son who's really into fixing cars and stuff, but you go and you get that specific tool that's really expensive that you need, you pay for it, and then you take it back. And they totally expect you to take it back within 48 hours and they'll give you all your money back. It's
Wow.
it's really amazing.
I
And
love that.
yeah, it's I think it's really a responsible way to run your business. And we give them a
Yes.
lot of business just for
Mm,
that very reason that they're good about that.
that's great. I love
And
it.
it's not just like our little store here in town. It's like all of the O'Reillys everywhere that
Hmm.
I've ever been.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love that.
So that's just a way to get away from the clutter. And then here's the other thing. When your parents do pass, you inherit all their clutter. So be kind to your children. Get rid of your clutter
Yes.
now.
So one of the ways that I'm getting my parents to downsize their clutter, it's the language that you use. I think that makes the greatest impact. So I also coach my clients to do the same. The question is, how do you want to leave this? When you're gone, do you want me to be able to spend time with the friends and the family and share all the funny stories and the beautiful things about you and spend that time honoring and remembering you? Or do you want me cleaning out your crap for a month? You know, what would you prefer? And that's when my dad, I think, really heard me. He was like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave this for my only child to have to manage, especially since, he doesn't live in state. My mother, a little slower to come to that. But when my grandmother passed away 7, 8 years ago, my aunt asked, "What do I want?" And I said, "Oh, I want the pink glass covered elephant candy dish." "Well, what else do you want, Melanie?" "Nope, that's what I want." Like, that's what I want. Well, but why that? Because when I was a little girl, I remember being intrigued that this candy dish never had candy in it. Like, it's just the thing I remember. And I mean, like, and if you see a picture of me, I have purple hair. I love pink and purple. Elephants are good luck. Like, there were a lot of reasons, but I didn't. My aunt sent me a lot of other things, and we kept some of them because what I know is that my grandmother wouldn't want me weighed down by her things. She wouldn't want me to have to worry about where it's going. She would want me to be able to appreciate. Now, I got a few pieces of jewelry, and obviously, those are special to me. But like, it doesn't have to be everything. And I have promised my kids, I have told my daughters, I promise you, I am not going to create that mess for you later. I'm not going to make this difficult for you. And if you see my stuff collecting, let me know.
I Yeah. It's really, we don't think about the impact that all of our stuff has on the people after we're gone.
Right.
And it also affects our our well-being. You want to talk about
Yes.
that? Like the relationship
100%.
between gaining weight and feeling living in clutter?
Well, I mean, I could be, kitschy about it and say that weight is clutter. But at the end of the day, most people experience great levels of stress from the clutter that's around them. And I think it's important to say because there are people who have beautiful homes that don't have a lot of stuff in them, but there's still clutter, whether it's the clutter in our minds, like, the things that we say to ourselves, the self-limiting beliefs, the imposter syndromes, all of the things that limit us in being able to get things accomplished because there's just like so many words and images and thoughts in our heads that are getting in the way. Calendar can be clutter, social media can be clutter, the news cycle can be clutter, people can be clutter, and that can really, weigh us down. And for so many people, when we're experiencing stress, wherever it's coming from, lead into negative, unwanted, and unhealthy behaviors. And so I am very in tune with how that affects me, and I am always going to food. My father was a drug addict, and his father was a gambler. He would tell you he was just a player, but he lost, businesses and homes and stuff as a result of it. My father, the same, lost his home, his car, his business, his wife, and for a short time, his daughter as a result of the drug addiction. And I think I spent a long time being afraid of drugs and being afraid of gambling, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But what
Mhm.
it meant was I was looking for another tool to help me manage uncomfortable feelings. And food was a great answer to that. And then, like, look where that got me. So knowing that there are better ways of managing our feelings, whether that is through exercise or meditation or healthy cooking and eating, all the things that make us feel better can be, tremendously helpful because our feelings need to be managed. We don't need to brush them under the carpet. Like, no, don't be stressed. Don't be sad. Don't be depressed. No, like, let's manage those feelings in a healthy way. Um, and then I think one of the roots, or one of the things that happens when we have a cluttered kitchen is that we lean into unhealthy eating, not just because the clutter is stressful, but if my kitchen is disorganized, I'm not pulling out the cutting board and the knife and chopping up healthy fruits and vegetables. I'm ordering in, I'm not setting up the crock pot with like a great chili or stew that might last, several days. Again, I'm calling the pizza place, the Chinese food, wherever you like to order in from. So when I'm working with people, it's the kitchen that I encourage taking care of first. Again, I'm values based. So if you really feel like greater impact would be cleaning the office, the living room, the dining room, the bedroom, or whatever, I'm in full support of that. But there's something about changing that kitchen environment that gets us, a good momentum.
I love that. I have my pots and pans are on a hanger. I have a very small house and a small kitchen. And I've come to the point in my life, I cook a lot. I'm a really good cook and I cook almost all of my meals. I almost never do fast food. And we eat a lot of leftovers and we incorporate leftovers and stuff. But I've come to the point in my life where I don't need all of those tools. I need a specific tools for the jobs that need to be done. It's like I have a Dutch oven size cast iron pot. I have a skillet size cast iron pot, and I have a soup pot, and then I have a stock pot. It's really all I need. I, and I can cook like amazing things with just those items, including bread. That's all you need. We make our own bread around here. So I do have a baguette pan. I make amazing baguettes. Just have to throw that out there.
I love hearing that. Everybody loves good bread.
Everybody loves good bread. Took me a lot of years to learn how to make it, but man, I make some amazing. I make better bread than Panera, and they were my goal when I first started out. I
I
was
believe
sorely disappointed.
100% that your bread, I live in New York City, so there is fast food, but like,
Mhm.
we have so many cultures and countries and styles of food represented. I'm like not going to fast food places. I would rather go to the mom and pop or, whatever. Um, but I think we're all always looking for good bread. Or my mother's gluten-free, so she's always looking for a good gluten-free bread.
Right, right.
Yeah. But I love you talking that way about the kitchen because like my number one goal is to get people to get rid of unitaskers, like
Yeah.
the things that they're only used for one thing. And I will never forget years ago as a weight loss coach, standing in front of a meeting room with like 50, 60 people. And this woman in the front row pulled out like this plastic thing and it didn't look right to me. And it was a plastic container for her banana. A banana, which comes in a peel, it comes in its own packaging. But for some reason, she needed this travel case for the banana. And I think, and this was years ago, and it was before I was doing any of this stuff with clutter. But I just remember thinking in my head, you live in New York City. Like, what else do you have in your kitchen that you don't need if you have one of those? And there are people who have like those avocado slicers. I have a knife. Some people have small and large food processors. I only need one food processor,
I have a
and
knife. I
there you
don't need a
go.
food processor. It is more trouble to clean those damn things than it is to just, run the knife under the water.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and people will say, well, Melanie, you have a crock pot and an Instapot. I do. And here's the thing. I live in New York City. It gets hot and humid over the summer. Opening a window while you're cooking doesn't make the biggest difference. I don't want to use my stove or my oven during that period of time. So having those two tools, I use them all the way through the year, and especially during the summer. Of course, I say that, and I made a really great pot of chili last night in my Instapot. But it's about, again, like what are the tools that are enhancing your life? What is simplifying your life? What is amplifying your life? What are the things that you absolutely need? Get rid of the other stuff.
Yeah. The stuff that you use at least once a week. If you're not using it
Right,
at least once a week, it needs to go. You don't
right,
you don't really need
right,
it. You're just
right.
making up reasons to use it.
Yeah. I
And for
keep
sure,
holding
if you
on.
haven't used it once a month or once a year, borrow it the
Well, I
next
think
time you need it.
it has to be a different time frame for different people.
Mhm.
I would argue I'm not a meat eater. I don't make meat, but we still have a gravy boat because on Thanksgiving, our friends come over with the turkey and the gravy. I could tell them bring your own gravy boat, but that little thing is not taking up a tremendous amount of space. But it what gets us in more trouble is, well, I know I haven't used it in a year. You never know what might happen, as opposed to I know I only use it once a year and I'm okay with that.
Right. It has a purpose and
Right.
it's like, people that have Christmas trees that they use every year.
Once
Yeah,
a year.
you're only using it once a year, but it's got a purpose and you're not cutting down trees,
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Menorahs, same thing. You're not going to be
Yep.
using your menorah all year long. You're going to use it over Hanukkah. So,
But how many menorahs does every family?
yeah, really? Do we need one in
I'm
every
I'm
room?
I'm laughing. My husband's father passed away earlier this year, and his wife is cleaning out a large home to move into something smaller, and her collection of menorahs could probably supply my entire neighborhood. But it was something that over the years brought her joy. She loved having them, but there were so many of them, they were out year round. They only got lit, 8 nights of the year. But they hung around for a long time. And so I think that's another example of both knowing that one person's clutter is your, pleasure and joy and what enhances your life, but there are also seasons of life,
Mhm.
and when you have the big home that the kids grew up in, there is more space than when you downsize later in life, and then you've got to pick the favorite menorah or two or three, but not, hanging on to all of them, but also being okay with your family saying, no, I don't want all of your menorahs. I'd
Or
like to
even,
pick
I
out,
don't want
or
any
any.
of them. It's
Right,
okay. They're
right.
allowed to have their boundaries too. And
Yes,
it's not
yes.
a commentary on who you are. That
No,
those pieces might be like the perfect thing for some random person who you never know, but they're gonna find it and they're gonna be like, oh God, this is so great. I have a story of a woman who
yeah.
it was a dress that they gave, they donated, and they went to another country and they saw somebody actually wearing that exact dress that they'd given away as a little girl, and it was the only dress she had. It was like such a
Beautiful. Yeah,
heart-rending story that it was just like
yeah,
went to the story. It was like
yeah, yeah. I
so
mean, it
cool.
speaks volumes to how valuable things can be. And it has nothing to do with what the initial cost was, but
Mhm.
rather the amount of value that grows in it over time.
And it's okay to let things move around and have a life, and you don't have to own everything.
Right. Well, and I
So,
think, there are so many different ways to like own things. So, one of my favorite things to do, and I know other people have done this, is so our collection of t-shirts were maybe excessive between like our sports teams, college t-shirts, high school t-shirts, concert, all of those things. And it's really hard to get rid of those things. And so for me and for my younger daughter, we both had quilts made. We picked
mhm.
out the shirts that either don't fit anymore, or there was a hole on the back, or there was something else about it. And we both have these beautiful quilts that have, like this history of ours that we love having, but they don't take up as much room as 20 t-shirts do. And so there are lots of ways to reuse the things that we own.
Yes, there really are. And it's like, yeah. Okay, so Melanie, how do you help people? We need to
How
get
do
to
I help you? Okay,
that.
so two things. One, I do private one-on-one coaching, but I also created a program, the Design Your Healthy Life strategy, which includes over 50 lessons on everything about nutrition and exercise to clutter in the kitchen, clutter in the bedroom, clutter in the everywhere, and all the mindset pieces, whether it's anchoring to the positive or decision making fatigue. We cover all of it. We have weekly workshops with other um, people who are losing weight and getting healthy by removing the physical and mental clutter, the literal and figurative clutter in their lives. And it's a great bunch of people.
That's great. And people can find you on your website. I know that you have the all of the lessons listed there. I thought that was genius.
Yes. There's a lot of lessons.
There's a lot that
Yeah,
they're like, oh
yeah.
yeah, I need that.
And what I love to say is I launched the program in July of 2023. So well over a year has gone by and we have not covered all of the topics because there are some that just, let's take an entire month to talk about emotional eating. Let's take an entire month to decluttering the home. And so those lessons can be read and they have great little action plans with them. Or you can wait until we, talk about it as a group, because there's just something about being with other people on the same path and journey as you to feel supported while you're learning things, learning about yourself, learning about your family, learning about your space. So yeah, a great bunch of people. I think the question was finding me on my website. melaniecohen.podia.com. I'm on all the social media since we were talking about that before the call. Yes, I'm navigating TikTok, even though it's for the quote unquote younger people. I agree with you, not so much. So yeah, just getting the message out there because everyone knows weight loss coaches, everyone knows weight loss diets, books, websites, companies, etc. And a lot of people know clutter coaches. There are very few of us who have integrated the two together, helping people lose weight and get healthy by removing all of the clutter.
Yeah, it just feels lighter when you get rid of the clutter.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So thank you so much for joining me. Let's try to sum it all up. And what's the one thing that your audience takes away from the conversation? And we've covered so much ground here.
Yes, and you asked me the question in the beginning, and I think I'm going to take a similar approach to what I was thinking about. And that is having been over 200 pounds, weight can be very shaming. How we carry our bodies can be very shaming. But so is the same for the clutter. So many people don't want people to come into their homes, or we're shoving things in closets before the company comes. And because it's embarrassing and shaming, and it doesn't have to be. It is about going out and getting help so that we don't have to feel the shame over those things. And to also know that like clutter comes in so many more forms than we assume. People think of the TV show Hoarders, and I don't want people thinking about that. Though that is the extreme. It's so unhealthy and it's so scary, and I've seen it in my mother. But that when we recognize that clutter is all around us and that we are not always the ones that create that clutter, can make it easier to address.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me, Melanie.
Thank you, Jill, for having
Thank
me.
you for joining us for the You World Order Showcase podcast. Remember, if you would like to be featured on this podcast as a life, health, or transformational coach, please visit www.jointheyouworldorder.com. We look forward to talking to you next time as we present another life, health, or transformational coach being the change they seek.